Hi guys, an article that was sent to me by Lone Fox Bushcraft, I believe it was. Thanks for that. But you know, I get a lot of these articles sent to me, but this one I feel was, you know, well worth a mention because, you know, NASA now are, you know, bringing the consequences of a magnetic pole shift in line with climate change, and you know, this is one of the few that they do that on. As you can see, NASA, Earth's magnetic poles are switching with catastrophic consequences for humanity. The Earth could be left powerless to defend against blasts of solar radiation from the Sun for up to 200 years, leaving us at risk from skin cancer, worldwide electronic communications blackouts, NASA scientists have warned. Interesting, but we'll just try and find that part there where they're talking about the link with climate. Here we go. Climate researchers believe we are heading towards a reversal of the planet's magnetic field, an event that has happened before and has been attributed to wiping out the Neanderthal species. Can you believe that, guys? They had to throw that old chestnut in. But you know what intrigued me as well in this article is this here, but thankfully he added 200 years would not be long enough, though, for the Sun to significantly reduce the atmosphere for life to die out. And what he's talking about here, if you go back up the article, is he's talking about a similar thing that occurred with Mars here. Mars has been blasted by solar winds which have stripped off its atmosphere for billions of years since the beginning of our solar system. Well, Mars, if you remember in a couple of videos I did back a few months ago, had a magnetic field, and we know that because one of the scientists that specialise in magnetic anomalies put on board one of those spacecrafts that went by Mars and surveyed the surface area, had found that impact craters showed magnetic anomalies, and it was through those that they found that Mars at some point had got a magnetic field similar to the Earth's. So whatever it was that wiped out the Mars's magnetic atmosphere was of consequence to the atmosphere then being stripped away by the solar winds. And this is what I've suggested could be in store for us when the magnetosphere collapses, when the Earth's magnetic field faults for that period of time during the reversal. Now they're saying 200 years, but I've got a problem with that, guys, because as I've mentioned before, time and time again, this is an unusual magnetic reversal. And for the simple reason I say that is because on average, in the historical record, the magnetic Earth went through a reversal every 250,000 years. This time, it's waited an extra 5,000 years. And that's an indication to me, and it should be to these scientists at NASA, that things have slowed down in that mechanism of going through a reversal. Now, what is to say that this stalls out completely? And the fact that it waited another 500,000 years before it went through this, the reversal that it's going through now, is indications of that. It may not come back up, is the truth. And scientists are just saying, well, because it has before, it should do again. Well, you know, that might not be the case. You know, I don't want to cause fear, but it might not be the case. And, you know, as for them now linking the climate to the pole shifts, well, you know, haven't I been saying this for over a year now? That I've noticed that the cooler temperatures are shifting more easterly towards Siberia. Haven't I said that the jet streams now are showing signs of, you know, going haywire? Guys, you know, there is no, like I say time and time again, there is no coincidence where the magnetic North Pole is in conjunction with those two Arctic climates, both on the North Pole and on the South Pole, or the Arctic circles. So if the magnetic pole starts to shift and the climate starts to shift, then let me just bring your attention to one last thing that is in that same region, and that is the rotational axis. And I've said, and I speculate that at some point during this reversal, that when the field does go down, not only will the Arctic weather shift with the pole, and it is that way, when wherever the magnetic pole goes, it takes along the cooler climate with it, and not the other way around. But I also suspect that the rotational axis is not in the same vicinity of the Arctic region and the magnetic pole. So what I'm suggesting here is that we could have a rotational axis. And this has not been, stated that it's not a possibility. Scientists have stated that there could well have been rotational shifts on the axis before in the history. So, guys, just giving you a heads up here. I don't think that they're being completely forthcoming with all the information. And it's probably because of what those two NASA scientists that came on and commented on this channel a few years ago, that they are aware of an event, but they're not sure it's a catastrophic event, and for that reason, they're not going to come out and say it. So, I'll just say it for them, shall I? Bear in mind, guys, it was 870,000 years ago since the last magnetic pole reversal, and on average, it went through a reversal every 250,000 years. We have a record that shows that from studies done on the mid-Atlantic ridge, where that main fault line is. And with that, guys, I'll leave the video here. It's an interesting story now that NASA are linking magnetic pole shift with climate change. And there is another issue to be raised here. If now they are coming out with the fact that it is the magnetic poles related to the climate shift or change or chaos, then why was they pushing CO2 taxes? You think about that and what they've done with the money, and I've got to say, it's a sham. And if you don't know that we are living in unprecedented times of corruption, then you really need to start getting your head out of the sand. Because in my view, any of these government organisations where money, public money, or any money for that matter is concerned, it will be stolen in some form or fashion. We've got a serious problem with attitudes at people at the top in governments and government organisations, to the point where they're not spending the monies on the projects that they say they are. The defence, when they're saying that they're bombing this, that and the other, they're not bombing this, that and the other, they're just charging you for the bombs that they're not dropping. It's a complete sham, and I could go on and on and on, but I think you get the picture. It's an unprecedented time. I don't think there's ever been a time in history where corruption has been so rife and at the top. I mean, some of these people don't even get justice. They don't even get into a court of law. They get into a hearing where there is no punishment. We're seeing prime ministers, presidents get involved in drug trafficking, laundering of money. I'm talking, this, guys, because you've seen it on the TV, on the mainstream bullshit, where HSB have been caught laundering money for drug barons. Are those the sort of people that really you believe have the best interests, your best interests at hand? It's not. It's got to a point where scientists like myself don't even get a fair crack of the whip. We don't get no funding other than what public funding we can raise on little sites like this. And I have got an experiment which could possibly, if it plays out, and it doesn't really matter if it doesn't play out the way I feel it will, either way, the results gained from this experiment right, may well change the way we create electricity and generate it. It's because we'll have a better understanding of exactly where the electricity is coming from. And right now I'm trying to encourage a few local universities to give me a few hours of laboratory time. I'll build the experiment. I just want to use some of their apparatus, which I don't have the funds to buy myself. And it'd be a bit of a waste of money if I did, because it's not like I'd use the apparatus more than a few times to do this experiment. So hopefully, if I am lucky in getting a bit of that time in the laboratory where we can conduct this experiment with that apparatus that most universities do have, I'll record it and give you the results of that. And I will emphasize that it could be unprecedented, the results of this experiment. And, all these people that are trying to tap 0 point energy or over unity, it could put them seriously on a course where that could possibly be achieved. It's having this understanding of where, first of all, the electricity is coming from could help us then focus our attention on that point. And, I do believe in any case, we're on the verge of someone coming up with an idea of a more efficient way, because that's what we want. We want a more efficient way of obtaining electricity than what we've got now. Solar panel lets us down on the evenings when the sun goes down. We don't all have the facilities to, produce our own steam and therefore turn a turbine. Not many of us live by unique environments where we can tap waterfalls for the hydro energy to turn turbines. And some of the other methods that we've got are not accessible widely to us all. Not to mention the costs involved, like collecting even solar power and storing it in batteries. The cost puts a lot of people off, and it's not like if we did go over to these systems that we could still use the quantities of electricity that we use in our daily lives. Because we just would need that many solar panels and that much more batteries to store the power on. Even though technology in batteries are improving, it still isn't viable to just switch over to do that because of the costs involved. But I do feel that we're getting close to something. I think every effort should be put into to achieve that, because once we achieve a freedom of energy, we can change everything from that point. We no longer need to use a valuable resource such as crude oil. And I wouldn't be the first scientist that said that was the most grotesque waste of such a natural resource that has more benefits, believe it or not, in the pharmaceutical industry, the more it does have in us just burning it away in cars, ships, planes, etc. Once that resource goes and is, we have wiped it out, it's not easily replaced. But there you go, guys. It's just a state of times that we live in, isn't it? And you have to do what you can do just to make the best of what you have got, I'm afraid. And it's very frustrating for me to do that, because I have more than one idea. I've got more than the magnetic pole and the project that we're building for that, as well as the website that's going to be coming online soon. I'm interested in this energy production, and I'm going to be putting a video together shortly. I'm just waiting for a few other things to come through the post before I do that, and I'll show you more than a dozen methods of how we create electricity, and I'll talk through in a not too much of a scientific manner as I usually do. Anyhow, I'll try and keep all the technical jargon out so that the layperson can understand it, and we'll go through them and we'll discuss how the energy is being created with these devices. for most of you anyhow, you understand the concepts of wind generation. A wind blows the turbine round, which turns the generator, and you get electricity. So some of them are very simple, but not all of them are as simple to understand as that. And I will touch on those ones that probably most people won't have even thought about a way of generating electricity, so we'll go through that as well. So that's a video I wanted to put together, but to do that I've had to get a few little bits and bobs in to just simplify those demonstrations. So I'm going to leave it here, guys. Interesting that NASA now confirm that the magnetic pole shifting is now affecting the climate. Even though they don't tell you that it could last longer than 200 years before the reversal happens, and that is if the reversal happens. So, I'll say what I usually do, guys. There's a link down there if you want to support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. It's the only means for myself to get these experiments and some of this research done for you guys. So if you can afford to make a donation, the link's there. And also what I usually do. Guys, take care, and as always, bye for now.